She landed at Heathrow like she'd done 100 times before. First class from Abu Dhabi, Cartier bracelet catching the morning light, a quiet smile for immigration officers. The terminal watched her glide past in designer heels, dragging Louis Vuitton luggage like a runway prop. To most, she looked like just another influencer returning from a luxury getaway. But to the officers waiting just beyond customs, she wasn't fashion, she was finance. And buried in her phone and laptop wasn't a social feed. It was a map of a drug empire worth over £60 million. She didn't have drugs in her suitcase. She didn't need to. This is the story of Magdalena Sadło, the influencer turned accountant of cocaine, the woman who ran the numbers while others moved the weight, and how her arrest collapsed one of the UK's most organised trafficking rings, with not a single brick in her hands. Before she was nicknamed Barbie by those watching the encrypted chat logs, Magdalena Sadło was just another name in the hospitality circuit. Born and raised in Poland, she briefly dipped into reality TV, appearing on the Polish version of Love Island. The kind of girl who made an impression. Bleach blonde hair, camera-ready confidence, and just enough mystery to draw followers and fans alike. But the fame didn't last. Like most reality stars, she slipped off the radar, only to reappear in Dubai, where money flowed faster than attention spans. There, she worked the velvet rope life, front of house at elite venues, rubbing shoulders with wealth, ego, and excess. The perfect place to meet people and be seen. But it wasn't a modeling contract or hosting gig that came next. It was a job offer, the kind never posted publicly. She wasn't recruited for her looks. She was brought in for her access. Fluent English, business sense, no criminal record. She looked like someone who belonged in boardrooms, not back rooms. And that's exactly what made her valuable. Sadło didn't enter through the back door. She walked in through the front, into an operation that needed someone who could balance books, smooth logistics, and manage risk like a CEO. Her cartel contacts didn't want chaos. They wanted control, and she was about to give them both. By the time authorities even knew her name, Magdalena Sadło was already deep inside one of the UK's most structured cocaine networks. But she wasn't just part of the machinery, she was helping build it. Her role wasn't glamorous, but it was crucial. While others handled kilos and corners, she handled codes and currencies. On the surface, she was still playing the influencer, posting yacht selfies, toasting skyline views, promoting a Dubai-based charter company. But behind the filters and captions, her phone told a different story. Recovered files revealed ledgers, balance sheets, pricing grids, the bones of an empire. She tracked product stock, recorded batch numbers, logged client payments, and calculated profit margins like a mid-level executive reporting to the board. This wasn't a street gang with messy books. This was corporate crime. One document alone showed profits nearing £300,000 in a single month. It wasn't just cocaine. Sadło helped move 96 kilos of ketamine and 70 kilos of cannabis, keeping a running record of every shipment and every return. Yes, they accepted returns. She even issued corrections when other gang members fell short of her standards. Encrypted messages show her berating peers for sloppy accounting. She didn't carry a weapon, she carried the weight of the entire structure on her laptop. And yet, she didn't hide. She made herself seen, in luxury outfits, dripping in designer brands, moving through airports with calm ease and first-class tickets. If someone looked closely, it was all right there, not hidden, just disguised in plain sight. And for a long time, it worked. Until it didn't. It was meant to be just another drop. one of many Magdalena had done before. A smooth ride in a BMW, blending into commuter traffic, a ferry from Holland to Harwich, 33 kilos of cocaine in the boot. The destination? Wigan. Just another leg of the logistics chain, but this time it didn't stay quiet. The cocaine arrived. It was broken down, cut, and redistributed. Over 20 kilos hit the streets in one day. 1 kilo made it into the hands of a small-time dealer named Reese Barnes, and that's where it all began to unravel. Barnes got sloppy. He was caught, and in that arrest, detectives found something they didn't expect. Encrypted messages, strange references, a web of connections that stretched far beyond Cumbria. Operation Matrix was born. What followed was one of the most far-reaching investigations ever run by the Northwest Regional Organized Crime Unit. Detectives moves fast. Mapping burner phones, intercepting encrypted chats, tracking vehicles, and unpicking financial records that didn't make sense. They raided safe houses. One held 175 kilos of cocaine hidden behind plasterboard. Another, 77 kilos stashed inside designer suitcases. They seized bundles of cash, mixing agents, and a fleet of encrypted devices. 10 men were arrested and sentenced, then 2 more, a total of over 120 years in prison. But something was still missing. Amidst the arrests, one name kept surfacing, not in evidence bags or traffic stops, but in the metadata. She wasn't slipping, she was hiding. She touched down at Heathrow Airport like she had done many times before. First class as always, designer luggage, but this time there was no quiet exit. This time, border officers were waiting. Magdalena Sadło didn't have drugs in her bags. No cash, no weapons, but she had something far more dangerous. Data. In her handbag was an encrypted phone and a laptop. Both devices were pristine. No fingerprints on the surface, no signs of wear. But inside, a blueprint for a multi-million-pound empire. Digital forensics teams didn't need to break down doors. They needed passwords. And when they got them, the full scope of her role came into focus. The phone contained internal ledgers, balance sheets tracking cocaine, cannabis, and ketamine movements, stock levels, batch numbers, profit margins, customer lists. Everything was logged, every shipment tagged, every penny accounted for. One file detailed a 600 kilo cocaine movement, not scribbled on paper, but formatted like an export manifest. Another showed profit entries exceeding 269,000 in a single week. There were messages too, not emotional pleas or cryptic threats, but business. Cold, calculated efficiency. She corrected senior figures when accounting fell short. She documented supply dips, price shifts, and performance issues like a CEO reviewing quarterly returns. She wasn't just involved, she was central. The records proved she'd overseen supply chains across Europe, not as muscle, but as management. Logistics, accounting, oversight. She was the one making it work. And she wasn't passive, she drove the whole thing. Messages revealed she'd personally transported drugs on at least 7 occasions, covering hundreds of miles across England in luxury vehicles. She even logged down her own deliveries, distance, cost, profit. What the officers had was no longer a suspect. It was a system analyst with cartel-level oversight. Every kilo that moved, every payment made, every risk taken, had her digital signature on it. By the time Magdalena Sadło stood in the dock at Carlisle Crown Court, the courtroom wasn't deciding if she was involved. It was determining how deep her fingerprints went. The evidence didn't need much interpretation. It was structured, precise, undeniable. She wasn't caught with bricks in a suitcase or cash in her car. She was caught with something more damning. A paperless empire, built across encrypted apps and spreadsheets. Prosecutors didn't paint her as a pawn. They called her indispensable. Not an assistant, not an errand girl, but an architect. The Crown said she orchestrated logistics with a level of professionalism rarely seen outside corporate boardrooms. That she, in effect, was the COO of a £64 million enterprise. In messages recovered from her phone, she corrected other gang members, kept tight accounting of cocaine weight, cannabis batches, and ketamine distribution. She reprimanded them when figures didn't add up. She demanded reports. She scheduled updates. They didn't just find this in her data. She was the data. But the defense had a different angle. They argued she was manipulated, a woman drawn in by those more powerful, more dangerous, that she'd been promised glamour, offered an escape from addiction, and slowly consumed by the system she became a part of. They claimed she earned only £1,000 per month, that she played up her role online just for the attention. The court didn't buy it. Judge Nicholas Barker called her central to the entire operation. He dismissed the image of a woman swept up by circumstance. Instead, he described someone who calculated every risk, controlled every transaction, and built prestige off the back of poisoned profits. The image of the jet-setting influencer was stripped bare. This wasn't a lifestyle, it was logistics. This wasn't luxury, it was laundering. On June 13th, 2025, the verdict came down. Magdalena Sadło, former reality TV star, luxury event planner, and secret accountant of one of Britain's most sophisticated drug networks, was sentenced to 14 years in prison. Her sentence wasn't just a punishment, it was a message. You don't need to pull the trigger, you don't need to cross borders with bricks in your boot. If you run the numbers, you run the network. Magdalena Sadło's downfall didn't come with flashing lights or a high-speed chase. It came with a scan at border control, a quiet arrest in an arrivals hall, and a phone full of receipts. Her story began, like so many others in the digital age, curated, filtered, aspirational. She built an image, then built an empire behind it. But what makes her case different isn't just the scale of the operation, or the money that changed hands. It's the subtlety. There were no gang tattoos, no stash houses, no violent enforcers at her door. Just encrypted apps, balance sheets, and the woman who knew how to blend into luxury. It was white-collar drug trafficking, disguised in high-end aesthetics. More than 600 kilograms of cocaine, nearly 100 kilograms of ketamine, millions of pounds laundered and distributed across 3 countries. And at the center of it all, a woman who never raised a weapon, never made a scene, and never looked back, until it was too late. Operation Matrix brought down a number of criminals, spanning street-level dealers, couriers, and kingpins. Over 140 years of prison time was handed down. But it ended with the arrest of someone who had mastered invisibility, not by hiding, but by being seen everywhere and questioned by no one. As the prison doors closed behind her, the question still lingers. Was she a product of her environment or a new breed of trafficker, educated, image-conscious, and terrifyingly effective? Let us know what you think in the comments. And if you want more true stories from the UK underworld, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and we'll see you in the next case.